3 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. It's June, y'all. We're racing right along through 2024. A lot to get to on today's program. By now, most of you across Gamecock Nation and beyond have heard the big local story, but if for whatever reasons you have just finally tuned into some sports talk radio today, Mark Kingston, the 7-year South Carolina baseball coach, was relieved of his duties this morning around 10:45, 11 o'clock. Came a little more quickly than we might have anticipated. I don't think the decision was in any way surprising. It's disappointing for a lot of people. I feel for Mark and his family and the staff. They'll have to go, find other work. Mark will get a buyout of just under $500,000, so he'll be all right in the short term. I get it, but it's still, difficult. You never wish this upon anyone. That's why I said in a tweet earlier, I don't know that this is the time for celebration, and there's still a lot of unknown around here. This is a proud baseball program. This is a program that's been to the College World Series a bunch of times, but hasn't been in a dozen years. You played for 6 national championships. You've won 2 of them. Put a lot of dudes in the bigs of late. And now you're in the middle of the pack in the mightiest conference in the land. And, oh, by the way, perhaps the most storied or one of the 2 or 3 most storied programs in the history of college baseball is about to enter into your league. Their in-state rival is in the Supers this weekend. Talking about Texas and Texas A&M, of course. Oklahoma is very good. Carolina saw Oklahoma on the road to their first national championship back in 2010. Remember the Lightning game? Nah, don't worry about that, Lightning kids and your metal bats as conductors. It's fine. We have to get this game in.
That's more important than what the worst-case scenario is.
Anyway, I'm not at all surprised. I had somebody, and I'll say it. I don't care. I deal with all kinds of people all the time in my career. Been doing this a long time, but I dealt with a smart ass "I told you so" guy earlier today. No, there's no "I told you so." This team was not horrible. This team, a couple of years ago, Mark didn't make the playoffs. A few years back, Chad didn't make the playoffs a couple of times. That's what's horrible around here. This team was, until 3 weeks ago, this team was headed toward a top 16 seed and hosting in the NCAA tournament. And as we all know, the wheels fell off. You put them back on a little bit in Hoover, and then it just ran out of gas, if you will, to stay with some type of vehicular analogy this weekend in Raleigh. I actually thought you pitched okay relative to recent expectation and production levels, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the bullpen pitched exceptional compared to what it was when we're talking about what the worst of the worst was this year with the Georgia and Tennessee series. Pitching puts you in a position to win. I don't know if you could ask much more from your pitching staff than what you actually
Certainly
got.
Not yesterday, man. Certainly not yesterday.
Hey, we talk about facts on this show, Jay. We're good at dishing out the facts. How many teams would you guess have ever won a game in the history of college baseball without scoring a run? Our crack staff back here just did the research. We have the number. We have the number right now. How many teams have ever won a game without scoring a run?
I'm going to say it's less than 1.
You would be correct.
Yes.
That number is 0. Yeah. Can't win if you don't score. Yeah. That's exactly what happened against a team that has an ERA of over 6.
Yeah.
Unacceptable.
I felt like when Petrie hit the double, I forget which inning it was starting off, 5th, 6th.
Actually, I have it up here.
It's fine. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But he,
6, top of the 6.
Yeah, top of the 6, hits the double, gets to 3rd, nobody out, and JMU got out of the jam. And I felt like at that point, like, man, you know what? This just ain't happening. I mean, it's not like I'm predicting it per se, but you just like this. It's done. Mm-hmm. It's done. And not trying to take a shot at the hitter himself, but Will Tippett ends the game on a called 3rd strike, and it's just like that sort of summed a lot of things up. Again, it's not about Will directly; it's about the team. We had Coach Lake on a couple of times this year talking about called 3rd strikes, and that it seemed to plague this team. And look, at the end of a ball game like that, when I say you're swinging at everything, I'm not necessarily you gotta. And look, I realize that guys like Wade Boggs and Tony Gwynn or almost hitting freaks of nature.
Hall of Famers.
But how many times did they swing their bat not to get a hit, but to simply stay alive at the plate? And something like that has to be in the consciousness of any baseball player. I can't get out here, and I certainly can't get out with the bat on my bleeping shoulder. And it's just something that seemed to happen a little too often for this ball club. And where is the difference? Where's the balance between what players are supposed to do? Because we've talked about it. Coaches can't get out there and swing the bat, throw the ball, catch the ball, field the ball, etc. But there is also a level of preparedness and the things that coaches are supposed to do at any level. Even the greatest in the bigs, Joe Torre, Bobby Cox, Whitey Herzog, et al. At some point, hey guys, I need you to pay attention to what's going on here, okay? I can't just let you go out there and do whatever the hell you feel like. So to come back around, this decision is not at all surprising. There's no I told you so here from whatever faction of fans that feels like, well, we finally got what we wanted. What you have right now is a vacancy at a really interesting time. You've been past South Carolina baseball, not by Florida was already really good. Vanderbilt was already really good. Arkansas was already really good. LSU was already really good. You've been passed by two schools that a few years ago didn't give a you-know-what about baseball in Kentucky and Tennessee. You've been passed. Tennessee's about to lap the field with a lot of people with what Vitello's doing.
Georgia, too. Let's throw Georgia in there.
Coach Jones is doing a fantastic job. You and I were talking. This was a man who just a few years ago was doing well as a pitching coach in Major League Baseball and decided to give it up. He likes this life better. And if Georgia decides that they want to stay interested in baseball,
they'll make it worth his while.
Yeah. And again, I don't have to tell any of y'all, Metro Atlanta alone will produce more than enough talent to keep the Georgia Bulldogs fielding a very good baseball team for many, many years to come if Georgia chooses to stay with it. Georgia, it's interesting. Georgia seems to kind of ebb and flow with their interest levels in baseball. We know what rules the campus in Athens. It rules most campuses across the Southeastern Conference. But Georgia, the state of, I'm talking now, has more than enough talent for every team on that campus to be really good. It's just that sometimes other teams on that campus are like, oh, we can't compete with football. But that's another story for another day. But South Carolina's being passed. The two Mississippis have won national championships since you. It's not surprising that Florida and LSU played for last year's national title. They're very, very good. But this time around, what are you going to do about it? Listen, I'm not here to rewrite history. I liked the Chad Holbrook hire. I've said this before. I think the one thing that Chad needed on his staff, especially in the later years, was someone like Chad. Chad didn't have a Chad the way Chad helped Ray. And that's not knocking Coach Tanner. Coach Tanner's had a multitude of fantastic assistants through his career. But Chad really kind of pushed him up just one more little notch. And guess what that notch level was, man? Title winning. Chad was a hell of a recruiter. But I'm not here to say you go get Chad back. That's not where I'm going with this. My point is, if Chad had had maybe an administrative coach so Chad could hit the road more often, are things different? But it was still, nevertheless, a roll of the dice for someone who'd never been a head coach. Mark Kingston had been a head coach, but at smaller levels with good success. And he had come up as a player at North Carolina and had been a part of some fantastic programs and teams at the University of Miami. So Mark knew big-time baseball, but to some degree it was still a roll of the dice. Well, this time around, you can't do that. Not in my opinion.
Nope.
You cannot do that. Now, Mark makes $700,000. They're going to pay him $400 to walk away. I don't know necessarily I'm not saying that you must start your search with coaches that are going to demand seven figures. But I don't think that you can go out and roll the dice again this time around. The best coaches in the country now are making over $1 million. The very best might be approaching $2 million. And that's what you Gamecock fans want in your program. You want to get back to a level that you had under the heydays of Ray Tanner from 2000 to 2012. And I get it. And I think they want that too. But you got to pay for it. There's no middle ground here. There's no getting it done. I'm not going to say on the cheap because Carolina spends a lot of money on baseball. But I don't know that you can have the same levels and hope for that next level of success. And again, you've been passed by Tennessee and Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a concern. I had somebody hit me the other day asking me about that. I was like, man, I don't know if Kentucky knew they had a baseball team a few years ago. And now they're back-to-back supers. Tennessee, you can make a case for being the best program in the country. They need to go win a title to back that up. But they've won 50 games again.
And they've got, like, if they go to the College World Series this year, that's 3 times that Vitello has taken them to the College World Series. They haven't gone 3 times in, a collective 5-year span since before I was born.
I think Helton went once, and I think Tennessee went the year after, like 05 maybe?
05,
yeah. And then for a while, Tennessee was like, baseball, whatever.
Yeah, it was an afterthought.
And then a couple of years ago, Tennessee fans thought they had actually invented baseball, and that's why everybody hated them when they played Notre Dame. That was kind of funny. But no, so, here we are. So I don't know that this is a day to celebrate. I don't think you should ever celebrate someone being fired, especially, a team that did get, despite all of its issues and limitations, you did get to the playoffs. And again, just win 2 times in 6 games at the end of the regular season. And you're hosting in the playoffs. And maybe things are very, very different. But that didn't happen. And so here we are. Elijah's got some things we've been digging on. I've got some names that I've been hearing. I know David Cloninger, John Whittle, and a lot of others have been digging in on this. DC is going to join Elijah and me coming up in about 15, 20 minutes. It'll be quick because David's got a lot of work to do, but we'll get into a few things. If you haven't heard, Monty Lee has been named the interim coach because you got to have somebody in the chair. What that means long term, I do not know. We'll get into that for you. We'll follow what's going on. There are 5 games today that are do or die to get to the Supers. Speaking of the number 5, there are 5 SEC schools that are already done. I know Carolina fans feel like crap, but the fan base that feels the worst right now is certainly Arkansas, who wasn't
OVC.
Man, that wasn't supposed to happen.
We do a drive around the OVC today. I know a good topic we could talk about.
That wasn't supposed to happen. Vandy just didn't show up in Clemson.
My God. Coastal took a 9-iron to their skull. That was a bludgeoning on Friday, and then blowing the game to High Point of all teams. Which High Point, you want to talk about the team that that didn't win any, I guess, big games like that. Or they did beat Vanderbilt, but they almost beat Clemson.
Yeah.
That's a cardiac arrest type team right there. Yeah. They scared everybody they played.
But Eric Bakich got the Tigers through to the Super Regionals up in Clemson, so they're excited. LSU and North Carolina play in a do-or-die game today. Florida is playing Oklahoma State in a do-or-die game today. Vandy, Bama, Arkansas, Carolina, Mississippi State, all done in the first weekend of the NCAA tournament with Tennessee, Kentucky, A&M, and Georgia on to the Supers. Want to hear from you on the phone line, on the text line, your thoughts on this, who you'd like to see next, at least what type of coach. I know Elijah has a poll question. We'll get to that on the other side as well. And David Cloninger with his thoughts coming up at 3:30 or so. You are listening to the Monday afternoon postgame show.
I think every program in the country wants to keep getting better. We're no different. The SEC is filled with teams that are dumping huge resources in, and I think it's just a matter of we need to continue to, do everything we can to try to give this program what it needs to be successful. There's so many parts of our program that are in great shape. But obviously we need to keep getting better, bottom line.
Mark Kingston yesterday after the 2-0 loss that ended South Carolina's season this morning, again, around 10:45, 11 o'clock, Mark was relieved of his duties by Athletics Director Ray Tanner. The search is on. Monty Lee has been named interim head coach for the Gamecocks. David Cloninger will be joining us in just a little bit with more. Welcome back in alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. One of the things in that cut that I wanted to highlight, and I had you play it on purpose, Elijah, dumping huge resources. This isn't just going to be about how much you pay your head coach and his staff. What else? Coach Tanner's very proud of what he calls that baseball facility. But where does it rank now in the Southeastern Conference? Where can you enhance it? We can play semantics with the words improvement and enhancement. Had somebody who's very well connected to the university today hit me up and say, you probably need, a minimum $5 or $6 million in improvements. I heard more like 10 or 12. So like double that.
So like the facilities or the resources they have for things like information, because they have, I think going into this past year, I guess brought in some new technology that
some of those things
helps out a little bit. But I mean, if you're still 10 to 12 million behind that, it makes you wonder what the rest.
I don't know. I mean, look, I don't know. Again, I have that range. Let's say it's anywhere from 5 to 12 million. All right, let's go to the middle at 8 or 9 even. That's a lot of money. In addition to paying someone that you're going to bring in, I think you will. 1.2 to 1.5 is probably now the neighborhood you need to live in. Again, your just fired head coach was making $700, and you're paying him $400 to leave. Don't know what the numbers are for the other coaches on staff in terms of total amount of contractual obligation from Carolina to those staff members. I'm sure there are mitigating factors if they go get other jobs and things like that, Mark included. By the way, for what it's worth, Kendall Rogers has already reported today, Kendall of D1 Baseball, that Mark is likely to be right back in the mix for his old job at USF, which is open. Mm-hmm. Never know. It's the so-called investment back into the program. Again, I don't think you can expect this program to be back amongst the elite of the elite if you aren't treating it as such. And I'm not saying they won't. I'm not even saying they aren't. But you hear Mark say that, and he's right. And, Tennessee will keep spending on baseball. Tony Vitello ain't going anywhere.
No. He's got pretty ultimate job security right now.
I've had some fans say, will they make a run at a guy like that, and come to a quote, baseball school? Well, I think he might have helped Tennessee turn that corner. Mm-hmm. And if Tennessee has to pay Tony Vitello $2 million a year to keep him and provide some upgrades to Lindsey Nelson,
they'll overpay.
Yeah. Tennessee will have zero issue doing that. Coach Mangione up in Lexington could be a little bit of a different story, but they've upgraded their ballpark. Mm-hmm. He's got them, again, in back-to-back supers. Who do they have coming in? Do we know yet?
Who Kentucky has coming in? I don't think so.
I'll double check that.
Check that because there's still obviously some.
See what they're, but I mean, if Kentucky and Tennessee make the College World Series, you're kind of up against it around here. There's a lot more than just, and that's what I said earlier today. There's a lot more than just firing the coach to get back to where you want to be. It's going to take a lot this time around because the conference was already great when Carolina was at its greatest. The conference is now greater as you've slid backward. So to play catch up, you're probably going to have to, dare I say, overpay a little bit here and there, when you're looking at the near-term future.
Well, here's the thing. You're more than likely going to have to overpay because of what the coaching market is right now anyway. You're not going to get somebody for what you were paying Mark to be able to get you results better than Mark. It would take a diamond in the rough to be able to do that, quite frankly, and that's a big gamble. And where you're at in your program's history at this moment in time in 2024, you cannot afford to flop this higher. You can't because like we've mentioned before, every program around you is getting better. You're bringing in 2 juggernauts. The last thing you need to do is go through a couple of years of being Missouri and Auburn because you might not recover from that. Because by that point, you think you might be a little behind now. Think about what missing the SEC tournament in a year or 2 from now will put you.
Right.
Even further behind. And what looks like an uphill climb will make it a steeper uphill climb. And the championships and the Omaha appearances are going to be further and further in the rearview mirror. Like, this is a very important hire, and I think this is one that you absolutely should overpay when it comes to what the market demands if you're serious about getting back to where you were.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. If you're serious about it and you really want to get back to that spot, you are going to have to give a Godfather offer, to use one of your favorite movies, a reference, give a Godfather offer, something that they can't refuse to a certain few candidates to pull them away from what are already really good jobs. Not saying in terms of like athletic departments, you can't outbid. It's not happening at University of Tennessee, maybe Kentucky, but there are certainly some places where you have the capability to do it. You just got to make the call and show that you're serious about doing that and making it some of these coaches that we're going to be talking about later worth their while to be able to leave their jobs, which are solid jobs and well-paying jobs, because some of the coaches we're going to be talking about later in the show are making north of $1.1 million.
Yeah.
That's more than $700,000 if my math is correct.
Yes, it is.
So you're going to have to overshoot the market to get a coach that can get you to Omaha, that has at least proven they can get somebody to Omaha, if you consider yourself to be a serious College World Series contending baseball school year in and year out.
I agree 100%. And like I said, too, I think then when those coaches may come down over the course of the next few days and tour the facility, where will they look and see,
what do they recommend? Because you're going to have to take the recommendation seriously if you want to land them.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, that's why I say it's not just paying that man and his staff. There will be more involved. What's the recruiting budget look like? And speaking of the recruiting, to one of the points you just made about, being further and further left behind, the kids that you're recruiting now, even taking into account seniors in the transfer portal, were, let's say, between 10 and 5 the last time you were in the College World Series.
Yeah.
So
they don't remember that.
Yeah, to fans, they remember. But to the players being recruited, it's a what have you done for me lately kind of a thing.
Absolutely.
And that makes it, I'm not saying you can certainly overcome it. Look, Carolina from 1985 to 02, Ray certainly had a national championship caliber team in 2000. They didn't make it. 01 wasn't quite as good, but they were pretty good. 02, you played for the national title. But it took 17 seasons to get back to the College World Series. It's going to be 13 if you make it next year. And that's a big if now that you're in a transition phase. So I wouldn't expect it next year. You always expect to make the tournament at this school. And I won't let go, by the way, of hosting as an expectation.
I think that's still, to this day, a very fair expectation for a program that has this history and resources. Yeah.
All right, David Cloninger on the other side. How this went down. David's got a list of candidates. We've got our list of candidates. We'll let DC go first. He's been doing a lot of hard and heavy lifting on this story, so he'll join us coming up with the latest as we continue talking about the fallout after Mark Kingston was fired this morning and what's next for South Carolina baseball. This is the Postgame Show. Welcome back in. Talking Carolina baseball. Mark Kingston fired this morning around 11 o'clock by Coach Ray Tanner. The search is on for Mark's replacement at a time when the Southeastern Conference has set a record by sending 11 schools to the NCAA tournament. And, oh, by the way, Oklahoma and Texas coming in, both of them made the NCAA tournament this season. Our good friend David Cloninger was busy, like our own Elijah Campbell, up in Raleigh this weekend. And DC, always appreciate you. I know you're busy, so we're going to keep you for just a few minutes today. You asked Mark yesterday in postgame if he felt like he was being supported. The answer was not necessarily evasive, but maybe not the answer you were looking for. What signal did that send you and everybody else yesterday afternoon?
Well, guys, I think we all knew this was coming. That's why I asked it. I mean, you're never going to ask a coach, or do you think you're going to be back next year? Because what are they going to say? Yeah, of course I think I'm going to be back. You know, you just have to ask if he thinks he's lost the support of the administration, which the way that they worded that contract extension last year, you knew that there was some shaky ground there. So that's why I asked it to get it on the record. You know, it's I'll go and say, yeah, I mean, we all knew it was coming if they didn't get out of the regionals. So, you know, I asked, he answered, put it in the story, and, you know, less than, 18 hours, 14 hours later, it was done. So glad they went ahead and got it done, didn't drag it out any, because Mark deserved better than that to just be twisted in the wind. But we all knew that this was coming and that this had to happen. The results just were not there.
And David, I mean, you and I have discussed, I guess what the expectations for this program are and maybe what the next steps forward are as well. But when you just look at, the Kingston era where this program is right now, and Jay and I earlier in the hour have talked a lot about how other teams in the SEC have kind of just surpassed you in just the last 3 or 4 years alone. How would you assess where this Gamecock program is right now in terms of maybe facilities, funding, and everything compared to their SEC peers, and including the 2 peers that are coming into the conference that also have rich baseball tradition and history?
Well, Elijah, overall, South Carolina's a top 20 job. The history, the winning dictates that it be so, and it still is. Now, are they as relevant as they once were? No. Are they feared and respected as they once were? No. It's been kind of average at best, at least according to past precedent. When Founders Park was built, it was a jewel. Now it's kind of like, well, it's still maybe middle of the pack, but just other schools in the conference have built theirs up to where they passed Founders Park. So it's another discussion for, do you have to build up the park to get recruits? I don't think you're necessarily at that point. But put it this way, guys, this team was much more talented than the results showed this year. And that's been the case for a lot of the past few years. Now, not the second year. The second year was a disaster that we all knew was coming, and it happened. But since then, it's been pretty good. So it's still a desirable job. They're not going to have any shortage of candidates. They just got to go out and find the right one. They've got to find somebody who can work in this new space that we have for recruiting and all that, and then go out there and get it done on the field.
And let's go there, David. Let's start with the news that Monty Lee will be the interim head coach for South Carolina. I'm sure you have. I know we have here at the station over the years. Well, Monty's there because Ray wants him to take over for Mark. Where do we stand on that particular storyline?
I would not expect Monty to be the next head coach at South Carolina. I would expect him to be the next head coach at another in-state school on a smaller level. This has been communicated to me and to our office that he really wants another open job right now that's in the state. But with South Carolina, and I should say South Carolina has already been lobbying on his behalf to this other school. So when you put that all together, say, look, I love Monty to death, but it's a case of like, well, you never know. I mean, he's a great assistant coach, but if he's going to be a head coach again, I don't think it will be at South Carolina. So it's an interim head coach to bridge the gap, but it won't go any further than that.
All right. Then let's get into who you're looking at. I don't know if you want to rank them, if you want to do it alphabetically, if you want to do it by gut, but who's on the top of the David Cloninger coaching search list?
Well, see, now you guys are asking me who I prefer, and if you ask me who I prefer, I'm like J. David Cloninger. I guarantee you this team will win under my leadership, but, we can't go there. But guys that I know that will be discussed and that are held in high esteem by the South Carolina brass. Tom Walter at Wake Forest, Chris Pollard at Duke, Skylar Meade at Troy, Dan McDonnell at Louisville. That's just a few of the names that I think kind of pass the quote-unquote eye test, as in they're established, they know what they're doing, they've got some familiarity here. But there's also guys that's like, these are guys that will say yes. Now, I know that Landon Powell is a popular name. Love Landon to death. But it's a case of, and I put it out this morning, so I can put it out again now, just be honest with yourself. If you're one of the guys trumpeting Landon, if he wasn't a Gamecock, would you care what the coach at North Greenville is doing? You just have to ask yourself that. I love Landon. I do. And if he wants to come here as a hitting coach or something, fine. Awesome. Great. Love to have you. But D2 to the SEC, the point is that not that he couldn't succeed. You got to hit a home run this time. You failed on 2 straight hires after this program was at the very top of the sport. You have to have a grand slam home run this time. You can't take any risks. And a D2 coach to the SEC, no matter if he's an alum or not, is a risk. Now, he might get contacted, but I don't expect that to happen.
Talking to David Cloninger of the Post and Courier, Gamecocks have parted ways with Mark Kingston this morning. So, you just mentioned you gotta do this right now, David. And to go back to part of what Elijah just asked you, about where Carolina is with spending, there's always limitations, even for the mightiest departments in the country, Ohio State, Texas, Florida, schools like that. Nobody's pockets are just endless. But where is Carolina right now? I mean, if you have to double the pay of the head coach, for instance, that means you're probably going to also come close to doubling the pay of a staff. And you mentioned Founders is going to need some upgrades. We're talking about a pretty significant financial hit or investment, depending on how you look at it.
Well, guys, it is a case of like, these are the realities and these are what you want. If you want to have a winning program for what you're spending now, I don't know if that's feasible. The fact is that the game has changed all across college athletics. Revenue sharing is coming in, and you're going to have to decide for what sports you want to invest in to get more money coming into the program and what sports can fall by the wayside. I can tell you now with full authority that South Carolina won't ever be one that just says, well, let's scale back baseball. Baseball is what South Carolina has done consistently. Even, when football was not so good, when men's basketball was not so good, the programs that make money, baseball was the one you could rely on. They're not going to give that up. I know it's been 12 years since they last got to the College World Series, but they're not going to give up what South Carolina baseball has built a reputation as being, which is a great, consistent winner. It's taken a hit over the past 12 years, but it's not destitute by any stretch of the imagination. So I realize it's one of those things. Well, you just got to give more money, to which I also realize there's a limit to that well. If you're going to give football, basketball, just, how many times can you keep asking the same folks to give their hard-earned money? So it's a case of like, I wish I could have a, definite answer for you, but you just got to find a way. You've got to find a way to get that money into the program and say, whatever you need, you're going to do it. And if that's stadium improvements, if that's NIL money, you just got to go find a way. I mean, this program's greatest perks was built on the phrase of win anyway, right?
Yep.
Now for all the boosters who want to have the baseball program they had, you got to give anyway. It's that simple. I mean, the game has changed, and it's not just good enough to go out and recruiting anymore.
Mm-hmm. And David, I know some of the other coaches that you mentioned, the short list, and all those guys would be home run hires. But of course, a couple of them, like Tom Walter over at Wake Forest, Coach McDonald at Louisville, still at really good schools and really good conferences. What type of things do you think it would take to be able to pry somebody from a job like that? Because when you're taking somebody, coaches who've been to the CWS, it's going to have to take maybe more than just the money and the resources that you just alluded to.
Well, sometimes. I mean, nobody wants to take a decrease in pay to come down. But if it's maybe just a slight decrease to, say, get you into a better situation where the administration supports baseball, then Dan McDonnell would make a lot of sense. Tom Walter just got a contract extension last year after he led the Demon Deacons to a College World Series. yeah, well, maybe that buyout's going to be a little too much, but you know he's a guy that wants the job, and maybe that could be worked around. So there's all kinds of, I guess, advantages and disadvantages to every guy that you would want to hire, but there's enough candidates that are the quote-unquote home run hires on this list that you'll be okay. The main thing that you can't do is just say, we're going to settle. I can say right now that there's probably 4 guys on this list, 4, that will say yes. All you got to do is make a phone call. But all 4 of them are like, but do you really want that guy? So you just have to see where they look and how that they're going to do with financial advantages or burdens and go from there. But, there's a lot of guys that will say yes to this job.
Y'all make sure you're following David on Twitter, DCP&C, and his newsletter, and, of course, postandcourier.com. There's a lot more to tell on this story throughout the course of the next few days. Appreciate you on a busy day, sir. We'll talk soon.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
That's David Cloninger. Want to come back to some of those names. One of them I might not classify as home run hire. The others I think could be. We'll get into that. Want to hear from you guys as well. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Monday afternoon. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Thanks to David Cloninger for joining us as we talk all things Carolina baseball. The season is done. Gamecocks eliminated from the NCAA tournament by James Madison yesterday afternoon, 2-0. JMU went on to lose to NC State. The Pack are on to the Supers. We got 5 games being played today. One of them is in the books. Evansville came from behind to beat East Carolina in Greenville. 6-5, the final score for the Flying Purple Aces. They now head on to Knoxville to take on Tennessee. So Cliff Godwin is now free to discuss his future. He, of course, has been at ECU a long time. He went to ECU. They make the regionals a lot. They've hosted a bunch. Carolina won a regional there a few years ago under Mark Kingston. But they don't advance. Cliff, though, is a good coach. He was basically down to him and Jay Johnson at LSU a few years ago. They hired Jay, and, of course, he's gone on to win a national championship. David Cloninger telling us, my list, a little different than David's. Tom Walter and Chris Pollard are at the top of my list, and I could really go 1A, 1B. Dan McDonnell is a South Carolinian. He played at the Citadel back when they went to the College World Series. He's taken Louisville to the College World Series 4 times, but of late, it's maybe dipped a little. Chris Lemonis is from Myrtle Beach. He played at the Citadel. He's won at Mississippi State, but I don't think State's going to let him go. He's another guy on my list. I like Skylar Meade, but Skylar Meade isn't really, in my opinion, any different than hiring Mark Kingston. It's what David said about Landon Powell. If Landon didn't go to Carolina, nobody around here would care. It's not that you're being disrespectful, but nobody would care. But there's the lure of the alum. I told you earlier, I liken, there's a difference, of course. Again, Landon played here. But it's not a lot different, in my opinion, Elijah, than when Carolina fans a few years ago were saying they wanted Jamie Chadwell to be the head coach when Jamie was doing good things down at Coastal. But the fact of the matter was, Jamie Chadwell had never spent a day in his professional life coaching, working, learning at any Power 5 school, not just in the SEC, any Power 5 job. Is he a good football coach? Yeah. Could you have hired Shane and then said, hey, Shane, I'll give you $1 million to go hire Jamie for a couple of years as your OC? I might have done that. Yeah. But running a Southeastern Conference program when you've never spent a day even working at this level, that's hard. And again, how many of you want to take that risk right now? Like
this
David
juncture
said.
In your program's history, yeah. And
that's why I say Skylar, I know Skylar worked here a couple of years. Skylar has played, he played at a big program. He's been around. I get it. I get it. But this time around, are you wanting to roll those particular dice? I think you got to make Walter and Pollard tell you no. And then I think you need to have Dan McDonnell and Chris Lemonis tell you no. I've also heard that Godwin might only leave now if Mike Bianco was out of a job and Cliff could go coach in Oxford.
He's an Ole Miss guy. There's some ties there. And Godwin's going to be hard to take out of ECU because from what I've been told, too, he doesn't want to leave unless he gets them to where they've never been. Yeah. Like, they're notorious for being the team that's made the most tournaments without ever going to Omaha. From what I understand of him, from what I've been told, that's a guy who wants to finish what he started.
Right.
So while I like Godwin, I think Godwin's a really good coach.
I think he's a very good coach.
I think, it feels weird to say you can't pry him from ECU, but I don't see that as a plausibility right now, just because of the personality type of Godwin.
And we're going to get a little more deeply into some of these guys, but you've got a poll question out today that I think is an interesting one in terms of gauging the interest.
Because and this poll question doesn't have any specific candidates. We'll add that later on in the week now that we kind of get to throw some names out there and get some idea of what people want as a head coach. But right now, we just asked, at 107.5 The Game, what type of coach would you like to see the Gamecocks pursue? Would you like a head coach with Omaha experience, a head coach from a rising program, an up-and-coming Power 5 assistant, or a former Gamecock? Overwhelmingly, a head coach with Omaha experience is leading the pack with 72.6% of the vote, which two of the guys that are on the short list, three actually, we count Lamonis, that are on this short list, have Omaha experience, one with a national championship.
Yep.
Head coach from a rising program at 14.2%, which Godwin would kind of fit into that mold.
And Pollard.
They fit into that mold because Duke and ECU have, before they got there and after they got there, significant improvements.
Pollard especially, man. Duke was, again, did Duke even know they had a baseball team? I'm not so sure.
They don't even know they have a football team half the time.
Right.
I mean, it's basketball. But then, and someone like Skylar Meade could be part of that, rising program, but to a lesser degree, and then becoming P5 assistant. We talked a lot about that, but 14.2% rising program, 8.4% former Gamecock, 4.7% up-and-coming Power 5 assistant.
8% say a former Gamecock, and I guess there's one on the list.
Yeah.
Hour 2 coming up. Summertime is here. The kids are out of school and things going on around the house. And you're saying, man, the kids are getting older and they need more space. But we like our neighborhood and the school district. What do we do? Well, maybe it's time to take advantage of the equity that you and your family have built in the home and get a Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union home equity line of credit. And that will allow you and the family to grow, assess your needs, and do it over a 10-year draw period. So you get a little bit here, a little bit there. Maybe, let's build a playroom over the garage. Maybe let's put a pool out back, Let's fix up the kitchen. Let's build the kids a new bathroom or something for ourselves to get away from the kids. Not really, but you know what I mean. Anything you can need, Palmetto Citizens can do it for you when it comes to a home equity line of credit. Again, over a 10-year period, and you can really save some money with lower rates and fewer fees. My wife and I are customers. We love what Palmetto Citizens does for us. Check them out online at palmettocitizens.org. 4 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back in. Second hour of the postgame show coming at you from the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia, South Carolina. He's Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. A busy day as we continue assessing the fallout from Mark Kingston being fired this morning after 7 seasons, 6 full seasons at South Carolina. Of course, the COVID year wiped out not long after it began. Under Mark, Carolina made it to the tournament 4 times, hosted twice, once as a 2 seed, kind of a backdoor host. Advanced to 2 super regionals, including last season at Florida. In fact, it's kind of interesting. Last year, I don't know, Florida and Kevin O'Sullivan. There's a lot of people talking about Kevin. They're playing right now, by the way. Let me check again, Elijah. I think there's no Florida. Oh, Florida's just gone up 2-0 at Oklahoma State. I told you, so back me up, man. I said Florida's going to win today and advance to the supers because everybody was counting them out. But really only one time did South Carolina host as a 1 seed, and that was last year. And they were in line for it this year. And like David Cloninger said, and I agree with him, this team is more talented than their results showed. And this year it wasn't injury. I don't know what happened with the pitching staff. I mean, again, SQ was kind of all over the place the last month, 6 weeks. I mean, the shutout against Kentucky yesterday, he was brilliant against JMU, but the shutout against Kentucky, Carolina won that one 10-0. Yesterday, you couldn't score a run. You wasted a heck of an opportunity. Could Carolina have gone on to win, last night against State and then try to win again today? Well, you'd like that chance. Didn't get it. So, what's next? Again, Monty Lee is going to be the interim head coach. There is heavy speculation that he will be taking an open job. I do not believe that it is the Coastal job.
I have not been led to believe that it's the Coastal one.
What I've been told is not that one, but we will find out. Again, this time around, for those of you who just tuned in, it's my opinion. Elijah, I think you share it. I know David Cloninger did. You got to get this one right. And I just don't know that there's a rolling of the dice with the hot, young, up-and-coming assistant, with the, just learning how to be a head coach guy at the mid-major. Mm-hmm. That's what you did last time. You did with Chad, he was the hot assistant, and he was your hot assistant. And there was always, not always, well, maybe it was always, from the time that Chad left Chapel Hill to come to Columbia, probably always an agreement in principle. Like, you're going to be the next head coach whenever that day comes. And again, with Mark, an up-and-coming, good mid-major coach, but not anything, at a higher level. This time around, I don't know that you can do that. I mean, you can.
You can do anything.
You can.
They can hire me for $10 an hour,
right.
And it's just not going to go very well.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think this time around, you need to go with someone who's done it. You mentioned Lemonis, Walter, McDonald. There's a bunch of trips to Omaha combined in there with Pollard. No Omaha trips yet, but 2 supers, 2 ACC tournament championships.
Hey, he was a Kumar Rocker start away from going to the College World Series.
Yeah.
It took Kumar Rocker striking out his lineup 19 times without drawing a walk.
I like what Pollard's doing. Again, I don't know that you're getting Lemonis, despite his ties to the state. Again, from South Carolina, played at Citadel. He's at a baseball school, and I think they'll do what they need to. And they got back. It's weird. The 2 Mississippi schools, man, they win titles and then hit some hard times. Chris got his team back in the playoffs this year, but they've already been eliminated. And again, Cliff Godwin at East Carolina interviewed for the LSU job a couple of years ago, but he went to ECU. He's doing good things there. ECU, were beaten today 6-5 by Evansville. So ECU, once again, will not advance out of their own regional into the supers. And I think that's 3 or 4 times. So that's a tough pill to swallow, but that's not to say he couldn't get it done. He's out there for you, but no trips to Omaha or the supers is my point when it comes to a guy like Cliff. And then again, Landon Powell, yes, he's won big at his level, but hasn't spent a day coaching in any capacity at this level. And to ask someone to come in and try to do that, I know he's popular. Mm-hmm. And he was a great player here. And I know he's known the Tanner family a long time because Landon's from Raleigh, and they knew Ray when Ray was in Raleigh. But does that mean you're ready to come in and not only take over South Carolina baseball, but at this juncture? This is a crucial hire opportunity for Ray Tanner.
I would love to have Landon on the staff. I think a guy who knows, because here we did get a text from Hot Rod Hewitt. Love the name. But he
played
said
for the Pistons, right?
Yeah, that sounds like it. Yeah, or he played, or might have been on that Chicago Black Sox team that threw the 1919 World Series. I don't know, one of the two. Sure. But he did say that he agrees to a certain extent because he wants Landon Powell. But he says he knows Landon knows how bad we want to beat Clemson and what that takes. And while he might know that, and while he does understand a lot of the cultural aspects of South Carolina baseball, I just wouldn't want that to be your only qualifier as a head coach. Would love you as the bench coach, or a guy who's here to help develop hitters and to be able to help you as a motivator for a lot of certain things. Maybe if you recruit a player, out of the state of Florida or from the Atlanta area or any other baseball recruiting hotbed, it would be good to have somebody on the staff, if the head coach doesn't have those ties here, to be able to be like, look, Clemson series coming up. This is this is different than just any game. That would be nice to have.
Yeah.
It's not as your head coach. It's really all we're saying.
And look, listen, I get it. You want to beat Clemson, but as you said, that's an early March series.
Yeah.
You need to be worried about beating Georgia and Tennessee and Florida and Vandy and Arkansas and A&M and Texas and Oklahoma and LSU.
In series.
But let's not. I get it.
Yeah.
But I ain't here to worry. I mean, listen, it doesn't take long to indoctrinate whomever.
Yeah.
When it comes to the hate of the rival. That's really, look at what Bakich did last week. Yeah. When he took a little backhanded swipe, sort of, at Carolina. I think
even from here.
It kind of failed, but nevertheless, it was rival hate. So there's that.
Shade.
But it's easy enough to tell somebody, hey, by the way, this Clemson series matters. But again, the other ones we just said.
Cool to have him on the staff for that and to help develop players to tell them what it takes to get to the bigs. But as the head coach, this is vitally important to get somebody who is.
I'm not going to let Clemson hate be one of the even top 10 things to worry about when it comes to checking boxes for the next head coach at Carolina. Again, that's almost a self-checked box.
Yeah.
So I get it, but I get it. I'll just leave it there. We got a poll question we'll get back to, and we're going to run down a lot of these candidates and some of the resumes, but want to hear from you guys, 803-404-6100. Let's jump on the phones. Billy is up next. Hey, Billy, good afternoon. Hey, Billy.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, man. What's up?
Hey, my take on it is we've had two swings and misses, Jay, just like you said a couple minutes ago. And this ball here has got to land in the outfield in the gap on the green, and we got to get it to the wall so we can get back to Omaha. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and if you look up at, and I know this just happened in the last 5-6 hours, but Coach Tanner's probably been thinking about this for a few weeks, I would think, because it was a plausible deal that could happen. If you look at all the boxes, that guy at Duke, he checked a lot of them. He's taken a program in a very, very competitive conference to a 40-20 record this year. They were ranked in the top 10 for a lot of the year, and I think last year they were a top 10, top 15 team. If I remember correctly, they were ranked pretty high most of the year last year. So, if a guy does it with less resources and less talent in a conference that tough, he's a proven guy. That might be the guy we should go after.
I agree with you, and thanks for the phone call, Billy.
Good selling point. It's always a good selling point.
I'm not here to say that's my top candidate, whatever candidate. Like I said, well, I did already say it once, so
he's on your short list.
Tom Walter and Chris Pollard. If you're asking Jay Phillips, and you are, at least for now, I got Walter and Pollard at 1A, 1B. I don't have them at 1-2. The difference is that Tom Walter's a couple of years older and has been to the College World Series. But Chris Pollard is a guy, he's a little younger, and, you know, both of those schools are limited in their baseball resources to begin with. Yes, they're in the mighty ACC, and that is a big deal. So what I'm getting ready to say is complimentary, but they are overachieving in the mighty ACC, and it ain't Big State U. This isn't Chapel Hill. This isn't UVA. This isn't FSU. This isn't Clemson. This isn't State. This isn't even Virginia Tech. This is Duke and Wake. Basketball schools through and through. You know, and look, Wake, I think, man, you and I were talking about it. I think Wake is the smallest school by enrollment in Power 5.
That wouldn't be surprising at all because they also have, like, rigorous academics.
Yeah, it's a fantastic school. And Tom Walter and Chris Pollard both have been there, and you might say, well, geez, they hadn't done much in their first few years. It's kind of been more late. Yeah, they've had to come in and basically be the architect of the program after having some success at their previous stops. You know, the New Orleans program's a good program, and that's where Tom Walter was. Chris was at Appalachian State. You know, they love sports, but it's hard, and that was years ago. I mean, that was
over a decade ago.
Yeah, 2013 was his first year at Duke. It took him 3 years to get to the playoffs. Then they missed a couple times, but then now he's been to 3 Supers. I apologize. He's been to 3 Supers and won 2 ACC tournaments. Yeah.
He's a good tournament coach, too.
Yeah.
It's just something when I look at pros and cons of all the names of the guys that we just discussed here in this first hour and a half, that's one thing I look at. How many times did you win a tournament? Because that's when it comes to getting to Omaha, you kind of get there, not because you bought an expensive plane ticket to get there, but because you won a tournament to get the ticket to go to Omaha. So you got to be a good tournament coach. Pollard does check that box.
I listen, Billy, again, I agree. This is a lot of what you're looking for. And listen, make no mistake. If the Southeastern Conference is the best baseball conference in the country, but the ACC does not lag far behind. There is no massive. This is not like a football gap.
Well, they beat the hell out of the SEC this
weekend.
I mean, NC State beat South Carolina. You saw what Virginia did in the 9th inning to Mississippi State. You see exactly Alabama get put in Florida State's regional and not get close to sniffing that thing.
We'll see what LSU and Chapel Hill do today, but they play each other in just a little bit. The winner moves on, so there's that matchup as well. You know, Clemson, I guess Clemson never saw Vandy, though, did they? They didn't have to.
They didn't have to, because Vandy had their own struggles against the Sun Belt and the Big South.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
But I do. I like Chris Pollard a lot. And like I say, man, that's a guy who I think, given the extra boost of resource level here in Columbia, you know, I'm not saying, oh, he's going to go win 5 World Series. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to win the College World Series. It's hard to get to the College World Series. But look what he's done. That's the kind of guy you have to have. You know, that's done it.
Program builders.
Yeah. And again, he and Walter both, from scratch, basically, have turned their teams into legit, you know, national players. So there's that. All right, we'll come back. We'll go over some more of these resumes. Want to hear from you guys. Speaking of Virginia, I got a text about that I want to get to from the text line, 803-404-6100. This is the Postgame Show. Time to beat the heat with AAA Heating and Air. You know, they've been your ally against the changing temperatures for many, many years. Roy and Dana Finley ready to help you out with a brand new system. A free replacement estimate can be yours at call AAAtoday.com. Then you say, well, okay, Jay, I get a free estimate. But then I see how much it costs, and what if I can't afford that right now? Don't fret. Here's why now is maybe the best time ever to get a new system from AAA. 12 months, no payments, no interest if you buy in 2024. $1,500 system buyback rebate, 15-year parts and labor guarantee, and speaking of guarantees, guaranteed financing options. It is more affordable than ever to get a new HVAC system. Stay cool in the summer, warm in the winter, and comfortable all year long. Call AAAtoday.com, 803-677-1500. Tell them we sent you to AAA Heating and Air. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Monday afternoon. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you as we continue discussing Mark Kingston being fired this morning by Coach Tanner. That news came down around 11 o'clock, a little before. We pretty much knew it was coming, just a matter of when. As I mentioned earlier, I was a little surprised that it was that fast. But, you know, rip the Band-Aid off. You knew it was coming. Do everybody a favor, you know.
It was for the best.
Yeah.
Actually, I am very pleased with the swiftness of a decision in terms of getting on that horse to fix your future.
Right. Again, it's not a day to celebrate. It's not. I know some of you are. I would not. I just don't agree with that way of thinking about this. I get it. Here comes change, but there's a lot of unknown out there right now too. When I say it's not a day to celebrate, I'm not saying they shouldn't have done this. I think it became untenable, and I do think this needed to happen. But you wanted to see how the playoff run ended, and if you had an opportunity to try to replicate some of the offensive prowess that you had in Hoover, and sadly you just didn't. And yesterday ended with a whimper. A 2-0 shutout and a called third strike to end the season. Just one of those things. And as some of you have asked too, what does this mean for players? Look, Messina's on the way to the draft. I don't know about Ethan Petrie. Ethan you would like to think he'll be playing summer ball somewhere, obviously, but will have an opportunity to at least speak with whoever gets hired. But I'd say in today's world, 50-50 that Ethan Petrie is back, and beyond that,
fair coin flip.
You do have a good team, but a lot of guys are going to be moving on anyway, and you got some older dudes through the portal over the offseason. You'd like to build around Petrie for another year. I don't know that you'll get that opportunity. I don't know. I'm not predicting anything. I don't know. It's not going to surprise me if Ethan transfers for one more season, and he's only going to play one more season of college baseball anyway. Before we get back on the phones, Pete hits us on the Firehouse Subs text line. Said, hey, Jay, I've been high on Brian O'Connor from Virginia for years. Why does there not seem to be interest in him? I don't know if it's that, Pete. I don't know that. I just think Coach O'Connor is happy in Charlottesville. That's all. I don't know that he's looking to get out. You can certainly pick up the phone, kick the tires, whatever, analogy you want to put on it. I think he's happy. He's won a title. Listen, he'd be a fantastic hire, but I don't know that he is one that's looking to leave. So I imagine that maybe he and his agent have just said to those few select schools, of which South Carolina would be one, yeah, our boy's not coming. And you know what? I don't blame him. You're well taken care of. If you've ever been up that way, it's a nice place to live.
And he's won that school a championship, and they value that type of stuff there. For a school that doesn't do much in football, they do very much so value winning championships in other sports.
Yeah. So I don't think it's interest in him, Pete. I think it's his interest in others, and I believe his interest level is very, very high in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I think he will retire as Virginia's head baseball coach. Back on the phones, Mike is up next. Hey, Mike, good afternoon.
Hey, how y'all doing?
All right, man.
I got two things. First, coaching search. It's unfortunate that someone has to get fired, but it's based on the product on the field. The changes had to be made. I think that going forward, looking for the next guy to run the baseball program, we look at someone who has experience in the postseason, but also who understands the South Carolina program. I felt like, I like Coach Kingston. He was a nice guy, but I felt he was a little out of touch with the fans, and I just felt like, hopefully that's the quality that the new coach will have. Second thing, I know y'all said that, the SEC took a hit this weekend, and I agree in comparison to the ACC. And I was just thinking this weekend, maybe the conference tournament is just too much. Maybe we don't need to have that tournament, maybe it wears the teams down. Maybe we just, have 30 regular season games, and then even like the ACC have like another non-con weekend built into the schedule where, teams, I don't think they get a breather, but don't have to face other SEC teams. And, you still end that weekend of the SEC tournament, but, you don't necessarily play 5 games over the tournament. And, especially for a team like Tennessee and who's already cemented themselves, I know they're still in it, but, a team like that is number 1 seed could, where they're pitching out over the tournament, and you want that to happen. So I'll let what y'all say off the air. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mike. On the first point that you make about understanding Carolina baseball, I heard that about Mark, that maybe he was not as involved in the community. That was one of the knocks on Will Muschamp, relative to, say, Coach Spurrier being in the community. Shane is now. Coach Tanner always was. Coach Holbrook was. Dawn is when she's not recruiting, she's helping kids,
Certainly.
and so I get it. There isn't a coach in this country that doesn't understand what Carolina baseball is within the structure of college baseball, though. No one's going to come here going, "Oh, are y'all good?" Not to suggest that that's what Mike was saying.
Right.
They get it.
There's at least a baseline understanding of the tradition because it's a national tradition.
Yeah, they get it. And you come here, whether you're an assistant on a staff, you're a head coach on another staff, SEC, ACC, mid-major, you come here, you see the outfield wall. That was one of the things Mark added that I was so glad they did when they put all of those up here. You need to shove that in people's faces.
Visualize it.
Yes.
You can say it all day, but when you see it take up a majority of an outfield wall, it hits a little different.
Yeah, and you see all those supers, again, the equivalent of the Sweet 16. Yes, you've won 2 national titles. And fans, when they come in through the main gate, from the big parking lot every day at Founders, there's those 2 trophies. So there's not a coach alive that doesn't understand the importance of that program to this school. Sometimes the personality type of who is what in the community. And look, I think that matters to a degree. If you're winning a lot, nobody's going to care as much. As I've said many times, though, and I'm serious about this, when you are involved, especially in a look, Columbia, as my late mother used to say, is the biggest small town in the world. When you are involved, it maybe doesn't buy you more time, but it buys you some empathy. It's just a little more.
Leeway. You get leeway because people feel a connection to you, and you're less likely to want to shoo somebody out of town if you feel like you have an emotional connection to them. I think that's a very real thing.
Right. No, it absolutely is. Yeah. It absolutely. And like I said, Coach Tanner had it, Coach Holbrook had it, Coach Beamer has it, Coach Staley has it, Coach Spurrier and Miss Jerry had it. You do. I loved Coach Holtz. It was great. And Miss Beth, of course, was going through some really tough times and needed to stay with her medical team in Florida. But Lou was a little bit detached, Steve and Jerry, the whole family came, man. The whole family came. And Jerry did stuff all around all the time. So I get it. I totally get that is a factor in all of these things. The second part of it, I don't know, Mike. Tennessee just won the SEC tournament, and they breezed through their regional. Arkansas, Dave Van Horn didn't give two you-know-whats about last week's SEC tournament, and they're done.
OVC.
I don't really like it, Mike. I'll be honest with you. I don't really like the Southeastern Conference tournament, and I would agree with you. Crown the regular season champion as your automatic qualifier, and then let everything else play out. And, maybe add another Listen, I'd rather them add another regular season series, especially with an expanded Southeastern Conference, and then let's crown a champion. I got zero problem with that. So I think we might come to the same conclusion, Mike, with a little bit, of a different path to get there. But I can't say that it's necessarily hurting teams. LSU has made it to a do or die tonight. Again, Tennessee won the tournament, and
LSU was on the bubble before Hoover. It goes both ways.
Yeah,
I see what he's saying.
Yeah, I do too. That's what I'm saying. I see what he's saying. Yeah. But if you told me, hey, the Southeastern Conference has decided to do away with the tournament, I'd be like, cool.
The party that would be the most aggrieved would be the city of Hoover.
Yeah,
Alabama.
Hoover. Right.
They'd be looking around like, what the hell?
Yeah. It's not you, Hoover. It's us. Full bank of phone calls. Sit tight. Get to you on the other side of the break. This is the Monday postgame show.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you that are causing some delays on the roadways this afternoon. We'll start with a few here in Richland County. We got one on I-20 eastbound over at I-77 exit 76A. We also have one on 77 southbound that's over at the Bluff Road exit 5. Got another one on North Brickyard Road at North Springs Road, and one more on South Carolina 277 northbound over near the Sunset Drive exit. In Lexington County, we have a few as well, one on Bush River Road near Lake Murray Boulevard, one on Platte Springs Road at South Lakes Drive, and one on US 378 near I-26.
It's been all Carolina baseball today. Mark Kingston was fired this morning by Coach Ray Tanner after 7 years as Carolina's baseball coach, 6 full seasons, 2 trips to the Supers, 4 trips to the NCAA tournament, 2 years where they missed it, and, of course, the COVID year. Everybody had to stop about a third of the way through the year. The news came down around 11 o'clock this morning, give or take, but we knew it was coming and that the situation was basically untenable. I don't know, Elijah. Does a super regional trip do enough? Did you need to make it to Omaha? And with the way this team pitched, that just felt like an incredible long shot. Anyway, I don't have an answer as to. Look, I think if you made it to Omaha, yeah, Mark's going to hang around.
Yeah.
Beyond,
it's a pretty significant accomplishment.
Yeah, beyond that, I don't even know that making a super regional was going to be enough. Just with some of the things that were out there. If you had been a 1 seed this year and made the Supers, then perhaps it's different. But you weren't. It unfolded the way it did, and the end of the season was damaging to the point that I think you couldn't turn back around.
I think the big kicker was the Georgia series, mostly because of the way if you're at Founders Park, and you watch the way the crowd kind of funneled out in the 8th inning. You went into that 8th inning up a couple runs, and you lost, by like 10 after that. I mean, you could have gotten run ruled if it wasn't already so late in the game.
Right. Well, they scored 10 unanswered runs on you. Yeah.
10 unanswered runs. And at that point, you could almost feel a zapping of enthusiasm to the point where it borderline turned into apathy. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing in collegiate sports, especially in 2024, where your NIL resources are directly correlated to crowdsourcing that money. Like your crowds and your fans at this point in time, since your NIL isn't under the umbrella of a fundraising arm of the university, you're basically passing around an offering plate. And when people are apathetic about the program, they don't want to put their money in that offering plate. This is now more important than ever to have that type of enthusiasm. And the first time the most glaring incident where it felt like that was kind of missing was the final 2 innings, that Georgia game at home that sealed the fate of a sweep. And you could feel it after that.
Yeah. I agree with you. We've been talking about some of the candidates, too. We'll get back on the phones in a second. Barry, coming to you in just a minute here, bud. Tom Walter at Wake Forest, Chris Pollard at Duke, Dan McDonnell at Louisville, Chris Lemonis at Mississippi State, Cliff Godwin at East Carolina. Really, one of those, if not more than one of those, is going to tell you yes, in my opinion, as long as you can meet their personal financial requirements, what they'll need for their staff, and what they'll want in enhancements to the baseball facility, the recruiting budget, et cetera. And again, it's my opinion that you have to hire someone of this ilk. And
certainly,
yeah, you can't expect to get back to what you were, and that's what the fans are basically demanding at this point now, and do it on the current budget. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
it's just again, you're being passed. You're being passed in this conference by schools that used to look up to you. Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia. You're going to go around the country and take a poll. And most folks are going to go, yeah, they're better right now. Now, like David Cloninger said, you're still seen as one of those historically great programs, and you should be. But with every passing year, that begins to fade a little bit more, and that's not something this school can afford. So Again, if you want to do it, I think you got to do it in a big-time way. There's no more, hey, let's see if this next hot, young up-and-comer is the guy. You've done that twice, and here you are.
You need a proven winner. Yeah. And I know you have Walter and Pollard as kind of 1A, 1B. Mm-hmm. I've got Walter as 1 and 1 alone. Yeah. I'm going all in. I'm putting all my chips in the middle.
That's fair.
For Walter.
That's fair.
The more I look at that resume, and the more I realize exactly what his track record is in terms of getting, like, what I think it was 50 players drafted in the top 10 rounds developed 9 top 50 draft picks, 4 first rounders at Wake Forest.
Yeah. That's fair, man.
That's a combination of recruiting and development and having an eye for talent when you don't necessarily have the biggest recruiting budget. And the guy's a program builder. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned what he did at New Orleans and being able to win at a school like New Orleans. It's not just that he won at a school at New Orleans. Let's go back to the context of when he took the job. It was in 2005 after Hurricane Katrina, where they had almost no facilities because they're underwater. Right. And he literally took them, this is almost a literal from the ground up program building. Yeah. Right? He did that. And then at George Washington, from the time you look at his first year at George Washington, which is the job he had before New Orleans, to the last year at George Washington, that's a 20-win difference. Yeah. He's a proven program builder.
He's a builder. Yeah, no, I agree. And that's what I say about him and Pollard. They are architects of what they've done at their respective schools because there is no track record. Yeah. Wake Forest won the College World Series when Ike was president. and I think Duke had like a 50-year drought. I mean, they just, again, baseball was like, oh, yeah, baseball. Sure.
It was whatever at that point in time.
Go sports.
And then if you have any questions about character, Coach Walter in 2011 donated his kidney to a player who hadn't even played one pitch at Wake Forest, but had a serious procedure in which he needed a kidney to save his life, and he gave him his kidney. I'd like my kid to play for Tom Walter. If I ever had a kid that's playing college baseball and Tom Walter tells me that story, you go play for that guy because he's going to have your best interests in
amen, man. No, I think you make him tell first.
Absolutely. That's my first call.
I don't disagree. Barry is up next on the Love Chevy phone line. Hey, Bear.
Hey, what's up, guys? Jay, as you know, I've been following this program for, about 12 years now. And, we've talked in the past. Definitely overdue. You know that. I'm not celebrating. But we're left with a mess. Okay? This school is left with a mess. You look at when Kingston said after the Georgia series, a comment about the fact that the Georgia coach was able to go out via the transfer portal, emphasizing that, and do what he did. Well, Mr. Kingston, you have the same opportunity to go out there and strengthen your squad just as well as the Georgia team, but you didn't do it. You brought in some guys, okay, but now I want you to look at the grad transfers that are going to be gone next year, okay, and I want you to look at 2 or 3 freshmen that burnt years with 19 at-bats, maybe 1 pitching appearance, that burn a year of eligibility. Makes no sense, okay? Now, you got a team that, you're supposed to teach. You're a teacher. I've been around Kingston. I've been near the dugout for 2 years now. And this guy is not a baseball guy. I don't care what anybody says, okay? He can know all he wants about baseball, but you have to have the ability to coach kids, okay? And if it weren't for Cole Messina, they wouldn't have went where they were. And then you talk about collapse like last year, which was an absolute collapse. This year, when you add those errors, 16 errors in their last 6 games? Yeah. Come on now. Come on. So this is what it boils down to. Okay, we talk about tradition. This is what it boils down to. You've got to get ball players in here. Ball players in here. I don't know nothing about the NIL. I call it now it's legal. Well, now that it's legal, take advantage of it. Okay? Yeah. Take advantage of the thing if it's legal. Sure. But it's total rebuild now. It's total rebuild. And one other point I want to make is the fact that you have non-conference season. Then you have, yes, the absolute best baseball in the country in the Southeastern Conference during the season. Yes, they should have that tournament, just like everybody else does. I don't want you to cry. You're the SEC, okay? But then after you finish your tournament play, you have post-season non-conference, and that's where we separate the men from the boys. And teams like SEMO and teams like High Point come in and they beat these highly ranked kids because they have three guys. They have a Thursday guy, Friday guy, a Saturday guy. Everybody throws 95. We got nobody like that. You got a kid at Oregon State throwing 130 pitch, 9-inning complete game. Nothing. Never had a rotation this whole year. Never had a designated starting rotation. How at D1 level can you possibly accomplish that?
Well, that's now. Listen, that last point, I'm up against it, Barry. So you listen. We know the reasons this year, and unlike last season, I think one of the reasons Mark got his contract reworked, but the buyout stayed the same, is because he did get a 1 seed last year. They won 40+ games. They did advance to the Supers, and there were injuries that did, season-ending injuries that dramatically impacted the ball club. This year, that was not the case. I don't know what's up with the pitching. I don't know what's up with the defense. I don't know. And those are some of the reasons why there's a change. Because those things are, there's a lot of fundamental stuff in there. There's no question.
Mandatory to winning at the level you want to win at.
Yeah. And you were winning in spite of it, but at some point that's going to bite you in the rear end, and it did. Although, again, interestingly and ironically, yesterday you lost 2-0.
It wasn't the pitching yesterday. I think Dylan Eskew gave you more than what you could ask from him.
Yeah, your season ended in a 2-0 loss. So there's that. Barry, thanks for the phone call, bud. More of your calls coming up on the postgame show. 11 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. In the last couple of minutes, the skies have opened up over downtown Columbia. Can't say that's the case all across the Midlands, but be careful out there. We see people whizzing by here at like 50. It's crazy.
Unfazed. Completely unfazed.
Just a little rain and buildings and other cars. To hell with it.
Hey, that's my type of attitude.
Sure.
It's just water.
Sure, yeah. Sure.
I ain't going to act like I ain't seen it before.
Other cars. Just please don't slide into the window here for me, all right?
Always tap on, always slowly apply brakes. Don't just stomp on them. That's how you hydrate.
That's right.
Tip of the day. You're welcome.
More sage advice coming. Probably not about traffic conditions right now, but instead about the outlook, because here is the one and only Gamecock Larry. Larry, good to have you on, sir. How you feeling?
I'm feeling okay.
Good.
But I want to make sure I don't want to say anything wrong, really. But, this old Gamecock, I'll tell you what, I'll be honest with you. I'm an old-time Gamecock fan, long, soon be 90. But I'll be honest with you. I've been following baseball, I guess, way back before. I think we had a coach named Ted Petoskey or something. It might be the wrong one, but anyway, all the way up. But I don't think I've ever seen a coach like Coach Kingston. I mean, it seemed like he knows baseball, but he didn't want to play. He didn't play fundamental baseball. He just all them analyticals he was talking about. I don't even know what analytical means, but I do know fundamental baseball. You don't pinch hit. Some guys just went 3 for 5 in a 2-game series. He's 3 for 5. And you pinch hit him for some guy that I don't think had 10 at-bats in a season. And you pinch hit him for that. We have never had a set weekend series since when they made a decision to change Eli Jones from Friday night to Saturday because Arkansas was pitching their best pitcher on Friday night. So they didn't want our top pitcher at the time go against their top pitcher. That, to me, it just don't sound right. Analytical, maybe, but to know Gamecock, fundamental baseball, no, that was not right.
Well,
we ain't had a...
You make some good points. Ironically, Carolina only lost that game with Hagen Smith 2-1, so there was that. But listen, and there are a lot of detractors out there, Larry, and I'm not here to say up or down how maybe there was an over-reliance on analytics relative to fundamentals. I think there's a case that can be made for that. At the same time, a couple of different things go your way, and we're not here, but that I can't do that either. Elijah's point earlier was a really good one. If you just win that Saturday game, that game 3 with Georgia, how different is everything else? And I don't know if that's not the end all be all per se, but that's a great point. If you just hang on to win that one at home,
the manner in which you lost,
but
really
when the way it unfolded, and then you at least were averaging 7. We talked about this a bunch. You were averaging 7 runs a game against Georgia. Now they averaged 13. But then you went to Knoxville and only scored 7 total runs, and your bats woke up in Hoover. And then they kind of went cold on you again. You scored 8 runs Friday. Took a while. But you did it, so who cares, right? But you got it done.
You have 9 innings to do it.
Yeah, you got it done. And like Derek said in one of his tweets, you were down to 26 outs and 1 left, and that was enough. But, listen, Larry, and we'll see what's next. I don't know. In terms of what Ray looks for. How much, and I don't have a full answer, but how much of Mark's more modern-day analytical approach sold Coach Tanner on what he was looking for relative to maybe Chad with the more fundamental old-school approach? I don't know. Mm-hmm. How do you blend the two?
That's the question in baseball.
There's a lot of intel out there when it comes to the analytics, and the sport has evolved into that. All sports have. Because the way the computers can keep up with it and let coaches in real time see what's going on, they want that. But, yes, there are times when you need to go by the proverbial book or gut. I get that part of it, too. Larry, thank you. Glad you're feeling good. Hour 3 coming up. Headlines, revisit a little bit of what David Cloninger had to say, more on potential candidates for the Carolina baseball job.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to report to you that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We'll go ahead and start off with some good news. It's over in Richland County. The accident on I-20 eastbound over near exit 76A has been cleared, so traffic moving a lot more smoothly through there. We also still have some that are causing some issues. One in Richland County on South Carolina 277 northbound near Sunset Drive. You also have one on North Brickyard Road at North Springs Road and one on 77 southbound at Bluff Road near Exit 5. Lastly, we have 2 in Lexington County, one on Platte Springs Road at South Lake Drive and one on US 378 near I-26.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Monday. Welcome back in. It's also the final hour of the postgame show, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you for being with us. And the news of the day, by now, most of you, certainly across South Carolina, or those interested in the Gamecocks, have heard. Mark Kingston was fired this morning after 7 seasons, 6 full seasons as South Carolina's baseball coach. The COVID year was included in there as well. During that time, 6 winning seasons, 3 in conference play, although Mark's record overall in conference play was 83-96, about a 46% winning percentage. Overall, 217 and 155 at the University of South Carolina. Again, 2 super regionals, including last year, and, of course, yesterday the season ending in rather disappointing fashion with a 2-0 loss to James Madison. Dylan Eskew, Tyler Pitzer pitched well enough for South Carolina, but could not scratch even 1 run across. This happened quickly. I think most of us, Elijah, saw this coming over the last couple of weeks, and unless there was a rather long and successful postseason run, I've used the term a few times today. The situation seemed as if it had just become untenable. Fan apathy was beginning to grow. The unrest was getting louder. The team fundamentally seemed off. Again, all the defensive mistakes of late, just enough to have the pot kind of boil over, if you will, and here we are. But it happened quickly in terms of the decision itself being made and being made public. Again, around 10:45 and 11 o'clock this morning is when the university made the announcement. Monty Lee is the interim head coach. There is not, from what we understand, a heavy expectation that Monty will be the permanent head coach. I think Ray knows plenty about what Monty Lee means to baseball in the state of South Carolina. He worked with him, of course. Monty's been at Charleston. Monty's been at Coastal. Monty played at Charleston. And Monty may be in line for one of the 3 open jobs in the state of South Carolina. I think Winthrop, Coastal, and the Citadel, all looking for baseball coaches. So we'll see. Obviously, no official list coming out, and we'll talk more about these names in a little bit. But some of the consensus names that seem to be piling up include Tom Walter at Wake Forest, Chris Pollard at Duke, Dan McDonnell at Louisville, Cliff Godwin at East Carolina, Skylar Meade at Troy. That seems to be the outlier, in my opinion. Maybe even Chris Lemonis of Mississippi State, who is from Myrtle Beach, played at the Citadel with Dan McDonnell, by the way, and then coached with Dan for many years.
Both those College World Series at the Citadel.
Yeah, I say both those guys were on a College World Series team at the Citadel back in 1990. So, both those guys certainly have strong feelings about this program. And yes, we've heard the name Landon Powell. Again, Landon is a celebrated alum and a longtime Major League veteran, but has not coached anywhere at this level, even as an assistant. So, there are limitations to what he's been able to do. And at a time when you need to make a really, really big hire, can you afford to take another chance on someone that's not done it at this level? That'll be up to Ray Tanner to decide and Chance Miller to decide and those that they speak with on the board and Dr. Amarides. But, for now, you got to look at guys like Walter, Pollard, McDonnell, Lemonis. In the cases of Walter and Pollard, they have been program builders almost literally at Wake Forest and Duke, respectively.
Literally, yeah. There's a literal factor.
And we'll come back around to some of their resume points in just a little bit. But Mark Kingston done. Kendall Rogers, for what it's worth, of D1 Baseball, has already put out that Mark may be returning to his old job as head coach at South Florida. May be doing that. Mark and his family may want to take a $400,000 buyout and wait a little while, see what happens, let other jobs shake out. I don't know. Reached out to Mark earlier. Well, when he's ready to talk, I'm sure he will. Today is not that day, but we'll see. But I think this is going to move pretty quickly. And listen, when you look at it, all 5 of the names that might be topping your list, again, in no particular order, Walter, Pollard, McDonald, Lamonis, Godwin, their teams are all done in this year's tournament. So they are available to speak with you right now. You don't have to wait on anybody.
You can call them today.
Yeah, and I don't know that there's anybody still playing. I could be wrong, but I don't know that there's anybody still playing that South Carolina is going to have a super realistic chance to go get at the highest levels of the sport. You're not getting, some people are saying Kevin O'Sullivan. I think he tried that once. Listen, if Ray wants to call Sully, okay.
And if he needs a change of scenery, he's a good enough coach to where you'd entertain it.
But I mean, some people are saying, well, maybe he's kind of tired of Florida. I don't know if he is or not. They played for the national championship again last season. Mm-hmm. They're playing right now, by the way, as we continue with our headlines. I will tell you, if I could get to it here, Elijah, because I have yesterday's scores pulled up for some reason. They were winning 2-0 last I checked, and it is now 3-2 Florida in the top of the 6th. Florida is the home team today when it comes to baseball. Obviously, this game is being played in Stillwater.
Big gripe of mine.
But, yeah.
I hate that.
But Florida... Well, I agree. By the way, in a game like this,
higher seed should be home.
Yes,
I think.
Yeah, there should be no coin flip.
Yeah,
I agree, 100%. I agree, 100%.
We're not cavemen,
right? 100%.
Let's do this in a little more reasonable manner. That's my biggest gripe with the NCAA baseball tournament because I love how this is formatted.
Yeah,
I love it. I got home from Raleigh last night at 7:00 because of the early bouncing, and I just put my TV on Squeeze Play on ESPN Plus and watched like 8 games at once, and it was surreal. That was borderline erotic. It was awesome, but. The one thing that I hate about this bleeping tournament is having higher seeds be the home team in a sport which it actually matters a little bit.
I'm fine with it, and when they the higher seed or the lower seed, if you will, the bigger number, a 2 or 3 or 4,
the better seed.
If they are in the winners bracket, for like in other words, if they're the undefeated team, but say the 1 seed is the host and they have already lost a game, then I'm fine with like the winner's bracket team being the home team. But anything that's even in terms of records within the regional structure, yes, the default should absolutely be that the higher seed, the better seed, is the home team for the purposes of the sport of baseball. I completely agree with you there. But regardless, right now, Florida leads Oklahoma State 3-2, winner take all. All these games today, winner take all. There's one that's concluded, Evansville. We mentioned Cliff Godwin. Evansville has beaten Cliff Godwin's East Carolina team today 6-5. ECU was up 5-2. Evansville came storming back and then held on for the 1-run win. Also today at 6, North Carolina LSU. By the way, North Carolina will be the visitor in Chapel Hill.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Dumb.
Oregon State and Irvine today. Oregon State, wait for it, will be the visitor.
Disgusting. That's so dumb.
But Oklahoma,
George Washington's face should not have an element in this.
Oklahoma and UConn will also be in a do or die tonight at 9 in Norman. Oklahoma will be the home team. So you get 1 of 5. Seriously, today.
What does George Washington have against the higher seeded teams?
I do not know. The
NCAA gave George a platform many years after his passing.
But we'll have more on Gamecock baseball for you coming up in just a little bit. Getting to a few other things today. Up in Charlotte, the Carolina Panthers have announced what they hope will be a partnership with the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County for more than $1 billion in renovations to Bank of America Stadium and the surrounding area downtown. According to David Newton, he says the proposal for the long-term partnership took place during the City Council's Economic Development meeting. The City Council is expected to vote whether to approve the partnership June 24th. The Panthers and David Tepper, who's worth more than $20 billion,
with a B,
would like the city to pay $650 million. Tepper Sports and Entertainment will provide another $688 million, but it includes money, that $688, that Tepper has already, quote, invested since he purchased the team in 2018. It would bring the total investment in renovations, including a new practice facility, oh, man, to more than $1 billion. Renovations would include new seats throughout the entire stadium, improved accessibility all around the ballpark, safety and security enhancements, a reimagined pavilion that can be used for community gathering and outdoor classrooms on game days. Okay. Upgraded restrooms, sure. Enhancements to the stadium exterior to reaffirm its place as an iconic, beloved fixture of the Charlotte skyline. $650 million that $20 billion owner would like the city to spend. But
lovely.
According to the city, there will be no tax increases. It will all simply be from Charlotte hospitality taxes. So we'll see if this gets approved on June the 24th. My gut says yes. By the way, that would include a 20-year deal for the Panthers and Charlotte FC, which Tepper also owns, to remain in the city, but they have an out at 15 years, but if they had any debt left, they'd have to pay it all at once, and then they could move the teams to another city. So this could, at least for now, keep the Panthers in Charlotte for at least 15 more years. But we saw how the Rock Hill thing went, so
swimmingly.
Buyer beware. We'll keep you updated.
Very well.
On that one. The Braves took 2 of 3 from the Oakland Athletics over the weekend. The Braves are off tonight. They will be in Boston tomorrow night. Again, other regionals, 5 SEC teams are out already. We'll get into more of that for you in the drive around the SEC. But South Carolina, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Alabama done after the first weekend. Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas A&M, and Georgia have advanced to the Supers. And as we said, Florida is playing right now. If they win, they advance. LSU in Chapel Hill tonight. The winner of that game will advance to the Super Regionals. Many of you heard about what happened with Caitlin Clark and Kennedy Carter of the Chicago Sky. Now Chicago Sky head coach Teresa Weatherspoon has said that Kennedy Carter has had my words here, a talking to from Coach Weatherspoon. Quote, physical play, intensity, and a competitive spirit are hallmarks of Chicago Sky basketball. Kennedy got caught up in the heat of the moment in an effort to win the game.
It actually cost them the game.
I don't know if it was really to win the game or not. She and I have discussed what happened, and it was not appropriate, nor is it what we do or who we are. Kennedy understands that there are better ways to handle situations on the court, and she will learn from this, as will we all. If you didn't see it, Kennedy Carter basically hip-checked Caitlin Clark to the floor on a dead ball period in the third quarter of a game after Kennedy had scored. But apparently, listen, I'm not here to defend Caitlin Clark per se or go after Kennedy Carter. If you've seen the play, it looks bad in and of itself. But from what I understand, Caitlin Clark does talk a lot as well. She did it in college. We all remember the John Cena thing and all that kind of stuff. You know, the can't see me. She's a competitor too, but the women of the WNBA are like, welcome to the league, rookie. What surprised me was the lack of seeming compassion from her teammates in that particular moment.
Somebody's got to go over there and
at least get in Kennedy Carter's grill and go, hey, hold up here. We don't do that.
That was one of my first thoughts too.
Yeah.
Like, where are your teammates?
Yeah, that was my thing. I was like, whoa. Even her teammates just kind of kept on walking. Maybe they just didn't realize it had happened. I'm not sure. But even Aaliyah Boston was kind of standing right there, and all of a sudden, like, oh, Caitlin, you're on the floor.
Yeah.
You know?
The most annoying thing about this whole incident is that Kennedy Carter, after the game, was asked about it, said, I ain't taking no Caitlin Clark questions, and then goes on Threads to talk about Caitlin Clark, of all places.
Maybe she got paid. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Who owns Threads? Is that a Facebook thing?
That is, it's Mark Zuckerberg's version of Twitter.
That's what I thought. And sad news to close things out. One of the great Cowboy and Hall of Fame football players really ever, Larry Allen, died today at the age of 52. Was a part of those amazing Dallas Cowboy teams of the 90s. Again, a Hall of Fame offensive lineman blocking for Troy and Emmett. Just a really good dude. According to a statement from the Cowboys, quote, Larry was known for his great athleticism and incredible strength, was one of the most respected, accomplished offensive linemen to ever play in the NFL. His versatility and dependability were also signature parts of his career. Through that, he continued to serve as inspiration for many other players, defining what it meant to be a great teammate, competitor, and winner. He leaves behind a wife and 2 children. So very difficult, just 52 years old. Saw an interview with Emmitt Smith earlier, and boy, Emmitt took it hard. So rest in peace, the great Larry Allen. That's our headlines of the day. More on Carolina baseball as the postgame show continues. Welcome back into the post-game show on this Monday afternoon. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. You never know it, but it rained pretty hard here for about 30, 45 minutes. But now the sun's back shining in downtown Columbia, so be safe out there on the roads. Let me get you one more update real quick before I get back. I want you to read that last text that you just got us.
It's a good text.
Well, it's a text. Kidding. I'm kidding.
It's good to give us a good discussion point. I'd like to rebut it. Yes.
Florida is up 4-2, now hitting bottom six. 4-2 Florida over Oklahoma State. Again, winner to the Supers. Later tonight, North Carolina and LSU, Oregon State and Irvine, UConn and Oklahoma. And earlier today up in Greenville, North Carolina, Evansville came back to beat East Carolina by a count of 6-5. East Carolina's Cliff Godwin, I imagine, is on some type of short list. I don't know
I'd say so.
Who Ray Tanner and Chance Miller are talking with when it comes to hiring a new baseball coach. But we got a hunch that guys like Tom Walter of Wake Forest, Chris Pollard of Duke, Dan McDonnell of Louisville, Chris Lemonis, Mississippi State, Cliff Godwin of East Carolina. I feel like those are your leading guys. They're all available right now. Their teams are done. Look, listen, you can shoot for a Kevin O'Sullivan. You can, if you want to call Tony Vitello's agent, or something like that. I get it, and you might. I don't know. We had a texter earlier asking us about Brian O'Connor at UVA. I think Coach O'Connor is just happy in Charlottesville. Like I said, he's won a title. They're a good baseball team. They're moving on into the Supers again. I don't think he's interested in other jobs. I think that's what it was. It's like, why is there's no interest? Why is there no interest in him? I don't think that's the case. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's interest from him in leaving Charlottesville. I think he's happy
at his destination
at UVA. But hit that one you just read.
We did get a text from DJ. Thank you for texting, DJ. He goes, "Are you guys serious? Tom Walter would be your first call. The guy has a career winning percentage of .558. You would call him first over Dan McDonnell with a winning percentage of .698 and 5 trips to Omaha." I'll respond with, yes. Not only am I serious, I'm dead serious. And I didn't stutter, so I'll say it again. Your first call's got to be to Tom Walter. Yeah. And I do like the suggestion of Dan McDonnell from Louisville. I think Dan is a fantastic coach. He's got South Carolina ties. He's got almost as many trips to Omaha as your whole program does in its history. Mm-hmm. And I get the allure of that. And that's not a bad hire. If you do end up with Dan McDonnell after all of this, I think you're in a better place then in the future than you are at this moment in time right now. So I don't want to push back on that part. I think that's a really good suggestion.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't dismiss Tom Walter because of the winning percentage. He is correct on the winning percentage. Tom Walters is at .558. But you also have to realize half of that was spent building programs. And when you build programs for a career winning percentage, it's going to take a ding when you're building George Washington from the ground up. Like I said, if you missed it in the last hour, I mentioned when he took the New Orleans job, he took it after Hurricane Katrina, where the facilities were non-existent because of Hurricane Katrina. He ultimately got them to where they had some of the best seasons in that program's history.
And that's a good program too.
Yeah, and that was there were some really spectacular years. He's the only coach, or one of 7 coaches in the history of college baseball to take 3 different schools to regionals. So he's successful everywhere he goes. His first year at George Washington, and the difference between the first year at George Washington and his last year at George Washington is a 20-win difference. It takes building. He is a program builder. He's going to have some building to do because when he takes the job, there are going to be players hitting the transfer portal.
Oh, you might be starting from scratch, man.
Yeah, you're going to be players transfer portal heavy, and you're going to have to do some heavy-duty building. And this is a guy, too, and as much as I like McDonnell, the last few years haven't been as kind to him. They have missed the tournament the last 2 years and had a losing record in conference 2 years ago. Is it fair to say that he's completely lost his fastball with recruiting? Not completely. I don't think we know that yet. I think you need a larger sample size. But if you want to talk about how successful Tom Walter has been in the NIL era, he plucked Chase Burns, who's the best pitcher in the country. I would even say he's as good as Hagen Smith. I think it's 1A, 1B, whatever you want to rank it.
That's fair.
Plucked him from his home state. He played at Tennessee and is from Nashville. Wanted to be a Tennessee Vol his entire life. Took him away from Tennessee to play at Wake Forest. That's the guy can recruit,
and he develops in that pitching lab that he has. It's a real thing. And
Brett Lauder turned into a top 10 pick, and now he is the crown jewel of my beloved Cincinnati Reds farm system.
It's working. So, look, DJ, I said for years when people would come to me, I didn't do a lot of this on air, but it's no secret that I had these conversations with people. But I said, listen, when people said, you got to get rid of Kingston, last couple of seasons, you got to get rid of Kingston. I was like, look, unless you're getting a guy like Dan McDonnell to come down here for $1.5 million, plus what his staff's going to need and the enhancements that he's going to need, then you need to continue to let this play out. So I've long used Dan as sort of a national standard for what you can be looking for. But has a little zip been lost on the fastball? I think that's fair. And the more I've looked at what Tom Walter and Chris Pollard are doing, Chris Pollard of Duke, the more I would say for where you are right now, with all due listen, if Dan McDonnell ends up being the coach here, to your point,
it's a win.
Yeah, you've hired a fantastic coach, and maybe Dan could just use a little change of scenery. I don't know.
That's possible. We allude to the Steve Spurrier quote all the time about sometimes when you're there for a long time, the program needs a new voice. He's been there 18 years.
Yeah, but I would I'm with you. I would look Walter Pollard first, then McDonnell. Again, I don't think Lamonis is leaving Starkville, and I don't think Cliff Godwin is going to leave Greenville for Columbia. The word that I was told yesterday is that Cliff Godwin could be potentially interested one day in Ole Miss. But he interviewed for the LSU job. That went to Jay Johnson. But Cliff went to ECU, and I think he and his family like being in Greenville, North Carolina. So, But yeah, DJ, you got to put it all into context in terms of how, and again, you look at what Tom Walter and Chris Pollard are doing at the schools where they coach. Louisville supports athletics to a high degree. Not to say that Wake and Duke don't.
They just do more.
But it's just different at Wake and Duke. And if you can parlay the amount of work you've done into a school where baseball is taken so seriously, you get back to some of the things that you're looking for.
Hey, Wake and Duke don't have Papa John's money.
No.
Louisville's got that Papa John's
Dude, they got
money,
Papa
baby.
John's and KFC Yum.
Yeah. That is, you want to talk about maybe the best, most fast fueled
build
athletic department in the country?
They build
Louisville's
Fords.
Your team, man.
They got a big Ford plant. They got a big GE plant. They got a big UPS hub. They got riverboat shipping. They got horses. Louisville's got
They got it going on.
They got cash.
And they like to use it on their athletics.
They do indeed. And again, you look at a guy like Chris Pollard, the last couple of seasons at Duke, regional this year, supers last year, supers in 18 and 19.
Was a Kumar Rocker gem away from punching a ticket to Omaha.
He's doing some good things at Duke. In my opinion, has a couple of 40-win seasons already. So there's some quality candidate. But the point, DJ, no matter what, is that you've got to go after that type of candidate, in my opinion. I do not believe there is a way to roll the dice on a Skylar Meade up-and-coming type. I'm using Skylar because his name has been thrown out there. Forgive me, Tennessee's top assistant and recruiting coordinator. His name's
Josh Elander?
Yes, he's been mentioned a couple of times. Again, I'm sure he's doing fine work. Is that what Carolina needs right now? Landon Powell's one of your own, but he's not done it at this level ever.
Yeah.
Again, you want to bring Landon in as a top assistant? Do it. Mm-hmm. As the head coach now.
That's a big ask for someone who has not coached at this level
at all
at any position.
Yeah. So it's just, you better go get somebody who, if they hadn't been to Omaha, which McDonnell and Lamonis have, and Walter, then, with Pollard and Godwin, you've at least got dudes that make the playoffs on a very regular basis. And, we'll see what I like what Pollard's doing too. I really do like what Chris Pollard's doing too. So, but that's the level you need to go get this time. And that's going to probably cost you about $1.5 million. We'll stay with this, get you a drive around the SEC, a couple of phone calls as well. You're listening to the Postgame Show. You know, a lot of times guys don't feel great and get a little older and say, I'm fine. I don't need to go to the doctor. It'll all work itself out. It'll go away. And then it doesn't. Listen, don't be that guy, all right? Instead, call 803-875-MENS and set up an appointment with the Men's Clinic and Dr. Dan Balknight. See what's up. See what is causing you to feel the way you feel, a little down, a little sluggish, not like you used to or want to. There is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all treatment at the Men's Clinic. They have been doing this for a long, long time. They are experts in health care for men. They're dedicated to making you feel like yourself again. Again, that one-on-one consultation can be so crucial to figuring out what it is that's going on. You'll get a whole set of lab work done, sit down with Dan, figure everything out, start feeling good again. 803-875-MENS, themensclinicsc.com.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways. We got plenty of them. We'll start here in Richland County. One on Blue Johnson Road and Roberts Road at Harmon Road is causing some mild traffic backup. Got another accident on Hazelwood Road at Garner's Ferry Road. One on I-77 southbound over the Bluff Road exit 5, as well as one on North Brickyard Road at North Springs Road. One on River Drive near Sunset, and one that's been causing issues for a while this afternoon. That's on 277 northbound near the Sunset Drive exit. In Lexington County, we have one on Platte Springs Road at South Lake Drive, as well as one on Bush River Road near Lake Murray Boulevard.
It is Drive Around the SEC time, but the bulk of our time today is being spent talking about South Carolina baseball. By now, most of you have heard, but if you have not just tuned in, Mark Kingston fired this morning around 11 o'clock after 7 seasons at South Carolina, 6 full seasons plus the COVID year. 2-0 loss yesterday to James Madison. Ended Carolina's season in the Raleigh Regional, and now the search is on for a new replacement. By the way, real quick, for SEC stuff before we get into – and thank you all for the patience on the phone lines. Very busy, as you might imagine. Tennessee, Kentucky, A&M, and Georgia have all advanced to the Super Regionals. Florida is playing Oklahoma State right now. And if let me go back to it, Florida leads Oklahoma State 4-2, bottom 7. Florida is the home team despite being in Stillwater. Winner of this game moves on to the Supers later tonight. LSU and North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Winner, again, to the Supers. South Carolina, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Alabama have all been eliminated over the weekend. So 5 of the 11 will not advance. 4 have advanced, and 2 more could here in just a little bit. Let's get back with it. Yeah, let's get back on the phones as we talk Mark Kingston's firing, potential replacements. Scott, appreciate your patience, buddy. How you doing?
All right, how y'all? Y'all were just about to hit on something right there before the break, and I'll explain what I mean. You're not going to find very many, if any, coaches that made it got their team to the NCAA tournament and gets fired. That's a little bit unusual, really. Mm-hmm. I don't think you're going to find any other of those coaches be fired. In some ways, looking at it on the cover, I think it's a mistake. I mean, we did get to the tournament. Are you going to hold the coach accountable for all the errors that were made? All the coach's fault? No, it's not all the coach's fault. The players have to bear some responsibility here. And I don't just think you can't dump it all on the coach and say, okay, that's why we fired him. So let's use some common sense here, fellas. To do this, I think the selection has already been made. I think they got their man already. I don't think they would have done this if that were not the case. I just pray and say this. I hope if that's what has happened here, that they did what y'all were talking about, get a premium coach. It may be, hopefully it's the best hire that Ray Tanner has ever made. But yes, if that's what's going on here, I would hope that they got a premium coach. I don't think we need to go out. We don't need Landon Powell. No, we don't need Landon Powell. We need a premium coach to do what they did here. Otherwise, I would have stuck with this coach. He got us there. He's got the team. What kind of message are you sending the team and the recruits? I heard that we got a real good recruiting class coming in. That's just doesn't jive. So like I said, I think they got their man. This has already been, they know who it is. They may wait a while, or they might announce it real quick. But like I said, it should be a premium hire. I just don't understand it. I think it's a mistake if otherwise.
That's fair, Scott. Thank you for the phone call. And again, I appreciate your patience on a busy day. Listen, Elijah and I said something similar in terms of responsibility levels a few weeks ago. You know, if you're a fan, I don't care what team, what sport, what level, if things aren't going the way you had anticipated, expected, et cetera, on a day when it goes poorly, oh, my God, it's the coach's fault. And then on a day when it goes well, oh, the players did it. Well, I mean, you can't have it both ways. The coaches never play. Yes, coaches prepare, coaches teach, coaches analyze, coaches, in certain sports call the plays all the time. Y'all get it. So I'm with you, Scott, and I've said that on the air a few weeks ago. The players do bear a level of responsibility. Where did all these errors come from all of a sudden? It isn't, don't they ever shoot free throws? Don't they practice free throws? Yeah, some guys aren't very good at it. Like Mark said, they fielded 979 in conference play, and then all of a sudden the last 2 weeks, their defense has gone to hell.
It's the same type of frustration when you see a team in November in college football still commit false start penalties or procedural penalties, where it's things that you straighten up at the, in training camp or at the beginning of the season. When you see that type of mistakes, or when you see, mental errors happen, or throwing a ball away, or things like that we saw in the last 2 weeks, that's what makes it a little more frustrating. And that's what maybe points to coaching, maybe more so than a normal mistake in the middle of the season. And
Scott, to your point as well, that's one of the reasons that I threw out a tweet this morning that said this is not a time for celebration. Scott's right. You made the NCAA tournament. I'd like to look around and see how many times a school has fired its coach when they made the tournament. Now, I get it. Around here, I'm not saying, because y'all know, if you listen to me for any length of time through the years, my minimum expectation for this program every season is that they should host in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. You didn't do that this year, so you fell short. And when you fall short of the minimum expectation, you need to ask yourself why. Last season, they did host and still had injuries. They probably could have been a team that could have been a top 8 if not for the injuries last year. And then maybe you're back in Omaha. I don't know, right? What if? I'm not going to do that. But I think, Scott, that you look at 6 full seasons, only one time did you host as a 1 seed. Again, you backdoored your way into a hosting opportunity a few years back. And you didn't advance out of that regional, by the way, because you weren't the best team. You weren't. You were a 2 seed. Again, you got to host because ODU didn't have a facility. Twice you missed the playoffs, and that's not good. And one time you advanced to, twice you advanced, to the Supers, but only one time did you host as a 1 seed, and that was last season. Those minimum expectations weren't being met, and there clearly, from Coach Tanner's perspective, was not a lot to look forward to in terms of trying to up the ante and get that next level going again. So that's why. But Scott's not wrong. It's unusual to say, oh, really? But this is South Carolina baseball, and I think Ray also sends a message to his fans and to the next guy. Listen, I'm hiring you to do special stuff, to do big-time stuff, not just to steer the program. Let's get a 2 seed. Let's get a 3 seed. No. So, look, I know why this happened.
Because you're trying to get back to something.
We all know why this happened. But, and that's why I said earlier, Scott, I don't know what it would have taken from a result standpoint in this particular tournament for Ray to look at Mark and go, all right, you're good. Maybe it was getting to Omaha. Maybe it was getting to the Supers. But certainly the way you didn't advance this past weekend, there was a theme that had been building with a little nice bump in Hoover. But even in Hoover, you might have played for the SEC championship if you could play a little defense.
The silly stuff cost you in Hoover.
Yeah.
I think that's what maybe dampened the excitement of winning 3 games in Hoover. Any other year you win 3 games in Hoover, you're probably elated. But the fact that you could have gone further if some of the fundamental things were addressed and taken care of keeps you from enjoying it the way you could. And maybe, I didn't want to say, put the nail in the coffin of, a coaching change after the season. But it certainly was one of those things that you won 3 games in Hoover, but place that asterisk
and that's a big but.
Exactly.
It is. Scott, to your last point, I don't know if Ray already has his guy. There's the old adage that an athletics director at any school for any sport keeps a list of potential candidates should the need arise, and that they're able to move kind of quickly. Well, sometimes that happens, and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, when Ray's hired a football and a basketball coach, men's basketball coach, it didn't seemingly go as well as he might have hoped. I mean, you fired Will early in an effort to get out ahead of it. Now, look, I think you made a good hire there, and you got a guy that wants the job, and you knew there was going to be a dip in terms of what Shane had done recruiting-wise, and now they got to build it back up. Let's see what happens this year. Lamont has been a great surprise, but now there's a lot more pressure on Lamont's shoulders all of a sudden. But that one worked out despite the fact that it looked like that was sort of not a bungled search, but like, why is this taking so long type search?
It didn't go the way you drew it up, put it that way.
No. So I don't know, Scott, if this time around, one of these names that we've mentioned has already had a talk with, the agent and that kind of thing. Again, all these guys other than McDonald were coaching this weekend. So we'll see. All right, come back on the other side. More phone calls. That was the Drive Around the SEC brought to you by Herndon Chevy, your hometown Chevy dealer. Save $20,000 on new Silverados together. Let's drive. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. I didn't mention it during the we've been so busy today, but congratulations to Real Madrid winning their 15th Champions League.
You're not getting any congratulations from me.
And on top of it today, they announced that they just signed the best player in the world. You and I were joking. They're the Yankees of global soccer, with one exception these days. They keep winning. They have the biggest budget and the best players, but they win the championship.
They've actually won something since 2008.
They won a lot of stuff since 2008. This is their 6th Champions League in the last 11 seasons.
Makes me sick.
And they get Kylian Mbappe today, who again is going to make about $1 million a week. That's a good life.
Yeah, I take a week of that.
Sure. Let's go. Where am I going next? John. John makes about $1 million a week, give or take. Hey, man.
I wish I did, but I'll tell you this, fellas. I just got back yesterday from a week-long Adriatic cruise. Did I miss anything?
Nah. Braves took 2 or 3 from Oakland.
Yeah. I did hear about that, actually, but but I'll tell you this. You know, you're trying to think of maybe the standard that this program is. And I'll tell you something, Jay. The problem that Mark was having was that he was on the same plane and the same trajectory that Chad was on. And Chad did not do as bad of a job as everyone else said he did. But to both of their detriment, they failed to, number one, reach Omaha, and they failed to also be a national seed. And, you know, that's where the 40 wins a year streak ended, and the standard, you know, for lack of a better term, the standard dropped. And I think you can see the frustration clearly on all of the South Carolina fan base on this, because baseball used to be on the level that you see where women's basketball is now. There's no question about that. And it was a very long, consistent thing. It's kind of like what the Braves were for so long in the 90s. But, you know, when the standard drops, and unfortunately it has dropped, and the streak right now of consecutive years that South Carolina has not been to the College World Series continues to grow further than it's been since the 1990s. And it's something that, as you just said, we want to get back to. We want to get back to Omaha. We want to not only get back to Omaha, we want to win the College World Series, because, you know, the old adage goes, once you get a taste, you want to go right back for a spoonful.
Yeah. No, absolutely, John. And as I said, too, and thanks for the phone call, buddy. Glad we'll have to have more on John's Adriatic cruise. That sounds nice. But, you know, again, the kids that you're recruiting right now, be they college transfers, you know, the older college transfers to high school kids, are between like the ages of 10 and 4. They don't remember. I mean, they might a little bit. A 10-year-old might. It
would have to be like your first experience watching college baseball.
Yeah, like I remember, you know, I don't remember Carolina going in the 70s. I was little, but I remember when they went in like 81 and 82.
I mean, shoot, the College World Series wasn't even really televised.
No, it was on ESPN.
Until ESPN became a thing in 79.
I remember, like, in 82, we had to go to my uncle's house because he had a satellite dish. We didn't have one yet or something. I forget. We were at the lake, and like, he had it, like, you know, in town we had cable, but not up at Lake Murray. But, like, my uncle lived around the cove, and, like, we went to his place because he had one of those big-ass satellite dishes.
That could get ESPN.
You know, those big ones, man.
My dad sells one of those in his backyard. It's scary looking.
You know, now it just, I don't know. You could
looks decrepit.
Hang clothes from it or something. But yeah, John, you want to get back to that standard. And fans of a certain age do remember it. And you've got to find a coach who remembers it, whether he ever coached here or not. And it's easier said than done. So I agree with you, man. You've got to find the right guy that brings all of that back in. And look, Chad and Mark both missed the playoffs twice, and that's just you just can't miss the tournament here. You know, I mean, from '99 until Ray retired, they didn't miss it. I think they only missed the Supers 3 times, right? Maybe 4 times. Yeah, 5, 6, no, just like 8 and 9s when they missed the Supers. They made the Supers in like 5, 6, 7 or whatever. Yeah, anyway,
completely different standard.
Yeah, you gotta make the tournament. Again, you're not always gonna host. I get it, but you got to be in the tournament. And for Chad and Mark, they both Missed it. I want Keith to have something to say real fast. Keith, I got about 30 seconds for you, so make it count, man. You're on. What's up?
Hey, bud, and I'll listen in the morning. You talk about it. I think it's time to step back. And hey, Ray Tanner, great baseball coach. Baseball coach doesn't make you a great AD. I think it's time to take a look and say something's missing, along with the AD, the board, in their hiring practice. Because if you look across the board the last 12 years, nothing has had any longevity. Had success along the way, but nothing with longevity.
Yeah, well, that's something for the board of Dr. Amarides to think about. You know, obviously Dawn is the exception. I'm up against it, Keith, but call us back tomorrow if you want to talk more about this. For now, this is Ray's job to do, Chance Miller's job to do. We'll see what happens next. Maybe we have news tomorrow. Been a fun day today. Appreciate you being a part of it. Thanks to David Cloninger. See y'all then.
Do it tomorrow. Everybody's got various goals whenever it comes to their bodies, their physical shape, the way you're able to interact, with other people on a daily basis. And sometimes it does involve losing 15, 20 pounds. Maybe sometimes it's 30 to 40. Whatever that goal is, whatever you have in mind to achieve that goal, our friends at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss can help you get there. They helped me get there. Paul Grant and Shaylin at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss helped me do more than just meet my weight loss goal, but I surpassed it. I look better. I feel better. And I'm able to establish some significantly better eating habits than I have in the past to be able to maintain the shape that I'm in right now. If you're interested, just give them a call, 803-824-4210. They can help you reach your weight loss goal without any pills, without any shots. All it is just great coaching, great habits, and a sustainable lifestyle moving forward. Again, 803-824-4210 or go to ColumbiaSecretForWeightLoss.com. Results may vary.